You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Tuesday, August 27th. I have to do an instant reaction here because the 49ers just set their 53-man roster with a lot of cuts and a lot of surprises along the way. So this is going to be a short episode, but just going to give you guys the rundown on who made the roster, who didn't, and what surprised us along the way, because like I said, there's definitely a lot of surprises here. So first, I'm going to go ahead and start with the quarterbacks. Really not too much of a surprise here. I think earlier on in the offseason or in the preseason, we would have thought that Brandon Allen and Dobbs would have been a battle between the two, but as of right now, it doesn't matter. 49ers keeping three quarterbacks. And just so you know, the 49ers made it so you can no longer have an emergency quarterback that you elevate from the practice squad for game days. So that's part of the reason I think that the 49ers elected to keep three quarterbacks. And so Purdy, Allen, and Dobbs it is for those three. As far as the wide receivers, not too much of a surprise here when you look at the first six. So we got Brandon Ayuk, who, of course, he's holding in, so he remains on the roster. He remains counting towards the 53. We have Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, of course, the two rookies, Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, and just for insurance, in case Brandon Ayuk's hold in does go into the season, Chris Conley, you got to keep him. And quite frankly, he was pretty good for this team when he did get the opportunity. So Chris Conley makes the roster. And the one surprise is the seventh wide receiver that they elected to keep. That would be Ronnie Bell. I have to imagine that the decision to keep Ronnie Bell is for maybe if one of Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing gets hurt in the season, you still have another guy in Ronnie Bell who can field some returns. He's not the best at it, right? But, I mean, he has that experience. And also, I don't think the 49ers are probably confident enough that Ronnie Bell, if they did, in fact, waive him, if he would clear waivers. I know a team down in SoCal who would be very interested in Ronnie Bell, and his and that coach, Harbaugh, would definitely want to get Ronnie Bell out there. Of course, they have experience playing together in Michigan. So bit of a surprise there with the wide receivers, with Ronnie Bell making it in, but otherwise not too much of a surprise. As far as the running backs, so here's where it gets a little interesting. Elijah Mitchell was placed on IR, and it's not just short-term IR. It is season-ending IR for Elijah Mitchell. So he is not going to be playing for the 49ers in 2024. That makes way, of course, for Jordan Mason to make this team, or obviously Jordan Mason makes the team, but it makes way for him to be the RB2. Of course, Christian McCaffrey is the RB1. Isaac Guerendo, who looked phenomenal in the 49ers last preseason game, he makes a roster. And so Patrick Taylor Jr. slips in here with Elijah Mitchell being placed on IR. And of course, Kyle Juszczyk gets counted here as well as the fullback. So this is interesting that Elijah Mitchell has been placed on IR. You guys might recall he did return to practice. He, after having an injury in training camp, like the last bit of training camp, but he returned to practice. So I'm not sure what happened there with him. But in any case, it feels like the Jordan Mason hive, the Jordan Mason train is full go. So if you were one of the people who wanted to see Jordan Mason as the RB2, you're in luck. And I think it's going to be a really interesting 1-2 punch with CMC. Now, let's not count out Guerendo either. I think Guerendo could definitely have a role on this team. Both of those guys offer something completely different from themselves, and also Christian McCaffrey. So it'll be leaving defenses, I would imagine, kind of hard to defend all three of those very different aspects that each of those guys bring. Next, we have tight end. So tight end is weird, to say the least. First, we heard that Cam Latu and Braden Willis were waived. okay, fine. Like, that's not too surprising. I think we kind of have been seeing the writing on the wall for Cam Latu. Braden Willis, a little bit of a surprise, but because we saw so much involvement for him in the preseason, I think a lot of that just had to do with wanting to give him as much reps as possible to like prove himself out. Clearly, they didn't feel very confident about Braden Willis because he was waived. But in addition to those two, also Logan Thomas, who they recently re-signed. You recall Logan Thomas was a starting tight end for the Commanders last season. Um, they cut him during camp. They re-signed him and they released him again. So Logan Thomas also released, as was Eric Sauber. Eric Sauber, who I was kind of coining as the tight end 2 here, was also cut. And so I understand what some people are saying. There's a couple of players who made the initial 53 who are going to be placed on injured reserve. When those moves happen, it'll make way for someone like an Eric Sauber to sign back to the roster. Fine, I understand that, but I guess I'm a little surprised why Eric Sauber, who like I said, was assuming was the TE2, would be the one to be cut over Jake Tongas, who I think probably would have cleared waivers. So yeah, just I guess an interesting choice there. But like I said, it wouldn't shock me one bit if Eric Sauber re-signs with the team once those IR moves are made by the 49ers. And like I said, or I haven't said it yet, but the two that we can expect will go on IR for this team, John Feliciano and Ambry Thomas. So once those moves happen, Eric Sauber probably back on this roster. But still, even so, three tight ends, pretty thin. Jake Tongas, though, shout out to him because I do feel like he did earn it and he's looked pretty good. So, and this is again just the initial 53-man roster. It's never final, as Kyle Shanahan reminds players. You can get your opportunity some other time. And like I said, there's other moves to be made here. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I do expect that some moves will be made when it comes to the tight ends. And who knows, maybe a trade? I don't know. I wouldn't count it out, I guess, at this point. Crazier things have happened. Let's move on to the offensive linemen. So kind of interesting. The offensive linemen or the 49ers elected to keep, let's see here. I think 8. Is my math correct? 8 offensive linemen: Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivitz, Spencer Burford, Nick Zakel, and John Feliciano. Yes, that is your 8. John Feliciano, like I mentioned, most likely to be set to go on IR. Trent Williams is not on this list because he is on the reserve did not report list for not reporting to OTAs or training camp. The 49ers placed him on that, and he does not count against the 53. The interesting thing about the offensive linemen here is that you don't see a lot of tackles. The only tackles on this list are Jalen Moore and Colton McKivitz. You would think that if the 49ers knew that there wasn't really an end in sight in the Trent Williams negotiation saga, that they would probably elect to keep one of the tackles, either Chris Hubbard or Brandon Parker, but they decided not to. So I don't know. Tinfoil hat on, that gives me the impression that maybe they feel like this Trent Williams thing is nearing an end and he will probably be returning to the team soon. Who knows? Maybe as soon as they place John Feliciano on IR and Trent can just take that spot. So we'll have to wait and see, but I definitely thought that was interesting. So that, yeah. But aside from that, we know the 49ers don't worry too much about their tackle situation outside of Trent. Let's move on to the defensive linemen. So last season, the 49ers kept 10. This year, the 49ers are keeping 9 guys on the defensive line. So we got Nick Bosa, Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd, Robert Beal Jr., Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Sam Okoye-Nonu. Actually, that's 8 guys. Sorry. Yeah, so that's a bit of a surprise that the 49ers kept Sam Okoye-Inonu. You know what? I think I'm missing one guy on this list. Jordan Elliott. Yeah, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd. Yeah, who am I missing? Or did I count wrong? Jordan Elliott's there. Robert Beal Jr., Sam Okoye-Inonu. Maybe I counted wrong because yeah. Math, not my strong suit. Yes, 9. Okay, sorry about that. So 9 defensive linemen, one less than last year. And like I said, I think Okoye-Inonu would kind of be the surprise there. Some of the defensive linemen that they let go, UDFA, Evan Anderson, and then also some guys that they signed during camp. Defensive tackle Shaquille Brown, defensive end Jonathan Garvin, and Alex Barrett, who looked pretty well in the preseason as well. He was cut. I would expect a couple of these guys to make it to the practice squad. At the very least, Evan Anderson and Alex Barrett, I think, make it back to the practice squad. But we'll know more about who made the practice squad and who didn't after waivers, most likely. So that will be tomorrow is probably when we get the full 17 or close to that. So moving on to the linebackers. So first things first, Dre Greenlaw was placed on the PUP list. So he does not count against the 53, but by being placed on the PUP list, Greenlaw most definitely will be missing the first 4 games of the season. I think we already expected that he would miss at least that, maybe a little bit more. So not a surprise. And so with that, the 49ers were able to keep someone else that they probably wouldn't have if Greenlaw did make the 53. So we've got Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell, D. Winters, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Curtis Robinson, and Tatum Bethune makes the roster as well. That means that who's the other linebacker? Brain fart moment right now. The Jalen Graham, who the 49ers drafted last season. He did not make the roster, but I would not be surprised if Jalen Graham makes it to the practice squad. I'm sure they'd want to stash him there, see if they can develop him into anything. But for now, Tatum Bethune is going to be the one who makes the cut. And I'm also happy that Curtis Robinson made it through. He had a pretty strong preseason. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, I get it. He offers that special teams prowess. So I'll give that one to him. So the 49ers keep 6 like they usually do with their linebackers. Now is the cornerbacks. So most of it is not a surprise, except for that last name here. We got Charvarius Ward, Yamador Lenore, Isaac Yiadom, Renardo Green, Darrell Luter Jr. Those are not surprises to me at all. But I did expect that the 49ers would keep 6 corners. They did. The corner they kept, I wasn't really expecting that. So they elected to keep Ambry Thomas on the 53 man. But he is most likely to go to IR because of the broken forearm. So I think it's more of a procedural thing for him to, make the 53. But Rock Ya-Sin definitely did not make the cut. So they elected to keep Ambry Thomas, who is going to go to IR, over Rock Ya-Sin. But after he goes IR, it's always, it's always a possibility that Ya-Sin comes back to the 53. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. Or he could make the practice squad if he, clears. Let me see here. Yeah, he was released. So actually, Rock Ya-Sin, because he's a veteran, doesn't have to go through waivers. So he's released. He's probably free to sign with anyone at this point. But if he doesn't, like I said, I would expect him to get back to the practice squad and or sign back to the 53 if Ambry Thomas does go on IR. All right, let's go to the safeties. Talanoa Hufanga was activated to the team's roster, so he does count towards the 53. I think the hope is that he's going to be able to play within the first 4 weeks of the season. Otherwise, it would have probably placed him on the PUP list. That was something they were kind of deciding between, so they elected to activate him. And so the safeties are Jair Brown, Talanoa Hufanga, Malik Mustafa, and George Odom. This is a really solid group of 4 safeties here. Maybe the most solid that I can recall the 49ers having. So those are the 4 safeties for this team. And, obviously, I didn't make a slide for the special teams guys, but no changes there. Tabor Pepper, Jake Moody, Mitch Wishnowski, those guys also made the roster. But that's pretty much the 49ers 53-man roster. I want to know, like, who surprised you out of all these moves that the 49ers made? I'm going to get to some of these comments here. Like I said, I'm going to keep this show short and sweet. So let me just get through some of these real quick. Shout out everyone in the live chat. Brian Lockhart said TEs will be coming back tomorrow when Zambri and Feliciano go to IR. Yes, except I'm only expecting maybe one more tight end because I don't know, maybe they keep Rocky Sin as well, but who knows? Who knows? And also, you got to remember Trent Williams, maybe coming back soon too. Hines says Ronnie Bell would be Chargers wide receiver 3. Given their wide receiver room, I wouldn't doubt that. So, yeah, they would definitely 100% pick up Ronnie Bell if the 49ers, did waive him. So, I could see why the 49ers wanted to make sure that he stays with them. Yeah, 7 wide receivers and only 2 tight ends. Very, very interesting to say the least. And yes, Jordan Mason did look good. We got an honorary tight end, Juwan Jennings. I mean, Jennings is a great blocker, but I don't know if he necessarily fills the void. People have been saying this too. Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, obviously, we kind of sense that the 49ers were looking to see if, Braden Willis could be that, H-back kind of guy where he's taking up snaps at fullback as well, your emergency fullback, if you will. Well, I mean, obviously, Braden Willis didn't make the roster because, quite frankly, he didn't do so well in that role. But Juice could very well also, play that 2-parter role where he could act as a tight end. And why not? The 49ers should be pinching every penny out of that contract that they can, even if he did take a pay cut this year. Yeah, I mean, Sauber moving in slow motion, I don't know. I mean, he catches the ball. I mean, maybe the most reliable T2 as far as being able to catch the ball and be an option as a pass catcher that we've seen for some time. So I liked Sauber. I think he was a strong option for TE2. Mason Pline, Mason Pline's interesting because we really didn't see I feel like we didn't see a lot of Mason Pline in the preseason. Definitely not enough to make any decision on him. It felt like even all through camp, he flew very under the radar, all through preseason as well. It wouldn't shock me if he comes back to the practice squad, but also it wouldn't shock me if he didn't, just because I truly don't know what the 49ers think of him at this point. Shout out Mariah, 2 goats. Yeah, Hubbard gone. Our season rests on Jalen Moore, low key. I hope not. Jesus, that's ominous. Where's Sam Okoyenonu? He was on the list. Did I miss him? I'm pretty sure I had him on the list. He was at the bottom. He did make the 53-man. And like I said, I thought he looked good. He looked good in camp. He flashed. He was hurt in some parts of camp, which I think, maybe helped him fly under the radar a little bit by others. But obviously the 49ers liked what they saw out of him. So, yeah. How many players on IR? I know Elijah Mitchell was placed on IR. Kalia Davis was placed on IR. So the difference between them two is Elijah Mitchell, season-ending IR. Kalia Davis, IR with designation to return. So he can come back this year. And if I recall, his timeline was he'll be back some point halfway through the season. So Kalia Davis, short-term IR for him. And as of right now, I believe those are the only two guys during these cuts that were placed on IR, and we can expect Ambry Thomas and John Feliciano to follow here shortly. But yeah, I think some surprises. I think the most interesting thing to me is the fact that they didn't keep any other tackles but besides the starting two, Jalen Moore and Colton McKivitz. So to me, I really want to feel like that's a good sign with Trent Williams, and we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's definitely a moment for me. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to let myself go because I do have to work, but I appreciate you guys coming on. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. I'll be live again tomorrow with Desi. We're going to talk about some of the injuries. We have more clarity about Ricky Pearsall and what he's dealing with, so can't wait to talk to her about that. And, of course, more about the 53-man roster. So tune in tomorrow. But for now, have a good rest of your Tuesday, folks. Peace.